All right, it's 3 o'clock. Is everybody ready? Okay. Well, it's been a long time since we've seen each other, so glad to see everybody here today. Okay, before we hear the cases today, I have a statement to read. This is a public hearing, and we are the Zoning Board of Adjustment for Putnam County, Florida. We operate under the authority of Articles 11 and 12 of the Land Development Code as amended. The board is to hear and decide appeals challenging final determinations made by the Planning and Development Services Department under the Land Development Code, and to hear the zoning code in a particular case where, because of unusual circumstances, a literal enforcement of our zoning code would result in undue and unnecessary hardship. The zoning code permits us to authorize variances only for height, size of structure, or size of yards and spaces. If we grant a variance, we may impose reasonable conditions on the use of the property which must be satisfied if the variance is to remain valid. The standards we use in deciding whether or not to grant a variance are listed in Section 45-833 of the Land Development Code. I am skipping over a special use permit section because we only have variances today. Procedurally, we will call each case by name and number. A member of the staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of each request. We will then take comments from the applicant or their representative, followed by any public comments concerning the request. Please direct all comments or statements to the board and not to other people in the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to be recognized, come forward to the lectern, and identify his or herself by name and address. After all persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the board. This board will be voted on by the board members and become our final order. Any decision made by this board can be appealed to the circuit court. However, any appeal must be filed within 3 days after the Board of Adjustments has rendered the final order which is being appealed. Are there any questions? Before we hear the first case, all of those wishing to speak need to be sworn in. So will the notary please administer the oath? Okay, before we hear the first case, our attorney, Mr. Perry, has something he would like to address.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd simply like to once again caution our board members that you must avoid engaging in ex parte communications. That includes conversations between yourselves as it relates to cases. If you do engage in an ex parte communication, it needs to be reported before the case is actually heard to see if there's any kind of conflict that arises as a result of that conversation. If you have any questions, something comes up and you need to speak to someone about an issue with the ZBOA, I encourage you to contact our clerk, Jenny, or contact me. Madam Chair, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, clarification. Normally, whenever we do a roll call for site visit, we would tell that we had an ex parte communication or not. So you want to disclose prior to hearing the case?
You can, as long as we have it before the case is heard.
Okay, well then the case would be heard before we did our site visits. So it needs to be done now.
Yes.
Okay. Do we need a roll call to say us no, we had ex parte communication or not?
You can if you'd like.
Okay.
No.
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 No. Okay. All right, I guess we're ready to proceed. Our first case today is variance 22-005.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and board members. This is an application for a variance by Don and Michael Casto for a parcel located at 112 Roberts Boulevard. It has a future land use designation of urban service, and the zoning district is residential 1A. The subject parcel totals 0.20 acres and is located within the San Mateo Estates Unit 1 recorded subdivision, recorded in map board page 26, and recorded March 4th, 1957. The parcel has R1A zoning, which requires 75-foot of frontage and a minimum 7,500 square feet of lot size, which the parcel meets. The parcel was given a notice of violation in May of this year for a carport encroaching into the side and front setbacks and for not pulling a building permit for the carport. It encroaches into the 10-foot required side setback up to it's at 2.7 feet from the parcel. And the front setback, the 25-foot front setback is 5.5 feet from that. A building permit cannot be pulled until a variance is granted for this, which is why the applicant has made this request.
Would you hold the mic closer?
Sure can.
Thank you.
So currently, the applicant's requesting a variance to allow the carport to encroach into the current setbacks to allow protection for their new boat. The structure is approximately 200 square feet. If the structure would have been 150 square feet, the permitted side setback would have been 3 feet. However, it exceeds that 150 square foot limit. The applicant states that there's an existing drain field to the south of the parcel, which is pushing the carport into the front setback. And staff does believe that the carport could have been further back. However, it has been secured with hurricane anchors. So I don't believe that it can be pushed any further back. Further mitigation with plant materials such as trees buffering or mitigating from any kind of visual impacts probably would not be possible on the side, maybe in the front. Go through the aerial maps. Here's an aerial of the subdivision. As you can see, the lots were platted small in the San Mateo Estates Unit 1 subdivision. So they're all, unless they were combined, they're all relatively 0.2 acres. The zoning is R1A all throughout that subdivision, which requires that 7,500 square foot lot. It is located within the urban service future land use classification. And upon site visit, staff took some pictures of the carport boat. I don't know if you can see them on your screen, if they're big enough for you, but as you can see, it's fairly close to that side yard setback, but the fence there is not what's in. It's not the property line. I think it's a little bit further to the west. So it's not a good visual representation or landmark to use as far as how close it is to the property line. Here's another picture from the neighboring yard. It's a very nice carport.
Okay, some of our screens are not working. Mine isn't, but
Let me go back to that original picture.
nothing is. Neither's Mr. West. Oh, well.
You guys share screens at all, or?
Okay, I'll just share with Ms. Stanley.
It's all, I believe there's pictures in the staff report as well.
Yeah, I see.
So as you can see, it's a fairly narrow report. It's not too visually intrusive. Here is a picture from the neighboring parcel. It has some vegetation. The neighboring parcel has some vegetation. However, there are 6 criteria that need to be met to deny hardship for granting of a variance. The applicant met 0 out of those 6 because it was a self-imposed hardship. Furthermore, the request must be reviewed on its own merit rather than on the basis of pre-approved variances. A variance is authorized if due to circumstances unique to the applicant's property itself and not shared by other property in the area, there exists an undue and necessary hardship created by the zoning regulations. Staff is recommending denial based on the failure to meet the criteria. However, we've looked at variances such as this before. These are very small lots in these like interlocking estates and San Mateo subdivisions. So we do recommend denial based on the variance criteria. However, that concludes my presentation. The applicant has some comments that she would like to make, so I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. So it is my understanding that she didn't meet any of the 6 criteria.
She did not meet many of them.
Or the applicant did not meet any of the 6
Correct.
criteria.
Because they were mostly self-imposed. If a permit would have been pulled, and typically we see a lot of these because applicants don't think they need to pull permits for carports, which it does count as a structure. It does have to meet specs. So we do see a lot of these, or have in the past year.
Any other questions from staff?
I have a question. Is the front fence in compliance?
I believe if,
As far as setback and, I mean, it's legal?
yeah, the fence is legal, it meets the height requirements, it looks like it's right on the property line, which is cool.
Okay, and this carport sits behind the fence?
It sits behind the fence, correct?
I mean, it's, what, two something, you'd say
2.7
feet
feet, yeah, to the property line.
into the
Like I
property.
said, the visual representation of fence, it's a little further in the property, it's not on the property line right there.
Right,
So,
yeah.
just want to point that out.
Okay, Mr. Fisher?
If it were to pass, what would they have to do still?
You just pull a building permit.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, before we hear from the applicant, let's do a site visit roll call, please.
Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, the applicant, Don Michelle Castro, are you here today? Would you like to come and address the board?
My name is Dawn.
Wait, before you get, we need to speak into the mic. Give your name and address for the record.
My name is Dawn Michelle Casto.
Pull it down a
I
little bit.
reside at 112 Roberts Boulevard in San Mateo, Florida. The first of the year in January, my husband and I had wanted to cover our boat, which we had previously gotten maybe a year or so before that. Noticed how the sun was damaging the material, the seating, and the outside of the boat, so we decided to put a canopy over it, but we didn't want an ordinary canopy that would blow away in the wind. So we put a lot of thought and time into this, and we got a nice one. And if we were going to do it, I wanted something that would last through a hurricane and, you know, hold up those damages. I did not pull a permit, and the reason why is it's my fault that when we did purchase the building, the carport, we were asked, do you want to pull a permit? And our question was, do we need to pull a permit? Because we would want to if you need to, of course. And he said, no, you don't have to for this building. So we thought, okay, it's a carport, that's probably why we don't have to pull one. So we did not pull one. But construction was delayed until May. It was built in May. As at the end of the build is when y'all had gotten a notice that it had been put up without a permit. Well,
Let me correct you, we didn't get a notice. Maybe codes enforcement got a notice,
Code
but not this
enforcement,
board.
yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay,
Code enforcement had met me at the house and told me, you know, the things that I had done. And if I wanted to pursue this, I would need to come in to start a variance setback. And so that's what brings me here today. If we put a bolt in that to move it, it does warranty it declines the warranty from the hurricane. They would not recommend it be in hurricane safety if they have to pick it up to move it. Even if I were to move it to another location, if someone bought it for me, it would not have a warranty at that time.
okay, you want to elaborate on that? If it's bolted to a concrete slab, why wouldn't it have, I mean, that's the company's policy?
If they move it, it voids their warranty, yes, ma'am. And there is in your document a statement that says that from them in the packet that you received.
But it was their fault they put it there, so. Anyway.
Well, it was my fault to begin with for not knowing I needed to pull a permit no matter what someone had told me. And I've learned a very valuable lesson. I'm born and raised here in Putnam County. I've lived here 59 years. I've been in that residence for 28 years. I would never do anything with the intention of doing anything wrong to my county or my neighbors. I just would not. And I wished I could turn the clock back, and I can't.
Okay. Any questions from the board, Ms. Castro? Mr. Fisher? Go ahead.
Oh, have the neighbors had any comments on it?
All of our neighbors has been satisfied, and they've congratulated us, told us how good it looked. I did take consideration of the color of our house, and we went with paneling to to emphasize the color to the house to the carport. Nobody's brought anything to me negative. I've only heard, everybody thinks it really dresses up the front of the, right in the very beginning of our roadway, before, you know, like the first 3 or 4 houses before you get into our little community. And they said it really brightens it up. I myself have not heard any negativities.
Okay.
Chairman, if I may add to that, we do send notices out to people within 300 feet of the property line of her parcel, and staff did not receive any comments back either.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Staff didn't receive any comments back from the neighboring
Oh,
parcels.
okay, whenever you send out the 300 feet. Okay, no objections, okay, or no, okay.
How did, how did code enforcement know about it? How were they informed?
Actually, I pulled the code enforcement file, and it looks as though the sheriff's office is the one that called it in. So,
Sheriff's office called it in?
yes, that's what it says on the
Interesting.
file. So I tried to dig further, but that's about all I got.
Who planted the lilies on the neighbor's side? Is that on your property?
No, ma'am, that's on my neighbor's property, and I've been there for 28 years. Them lilies has been there for 28 years plus. And they're beautiful when they bloom, so I don't mind them at all.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Castro.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the audience wishing to come forward and speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to come forward and speak in opposition? No one is coming forward. You didn't get sworn in, so you have to be sworn in before you can speak. Would you swear in, Ms. Fullerton? For the record, please state your name and address.
Rick Fullerton, 105 Park Drive, Satsuma, Florida. And I live kind of catty corner from where Michael and Michelle live. If you go down at the end of Park Drive, at the very corner there, she is like at a diagonal. I got the letter in the mail. No objection whatsoever to her putting the carport there. And I have no idea who called it in. I have no idea. But anyways, it is not an eyesore. It looks very nice, and it complements the house because the colors that they chose are similar to the colors of the house.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Fullerton? All right, thank you. Okay, since we had someone speaking for, I'm going to ask again, anyone speaking against? At this time, nobody's coming forward, so we'll close it to the public and open it up for board discussion and motion. Anybody? Jump right in.
Well, I have a comment. When I did the site visit, I made a loop through the neighborhood, and I noticed that many houses have structures that seem to be close to the setback, and it did not seem like their canopy carport stood out or was any different from many of the other houses in the neighborhood. And it was nicely built, matching the house. I don't think that by granting the variance that it would give them any special treatment over their neighbors. Their neighbors could go through the same process to apply for a variance.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve variance number V22-005. As it meets my criteria. How do I say that part?
No, it just says as it meets the criteria.
As it meets the criteria for a variance as required by section 45-833 of the Putnam County Land Development Code, with the conditions recommended by staff, and authorize the chair to sign the final order.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve variance 22-005. Is there any further discussion? not, all of those in favor, raise the right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, unanimous. So you've been granted your variance, but however, there's still a 30-day appeal process, so just, okay. I didn't forget anything. Okay, we're next for the next case is variance 22-008.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Zachary Baker, Planning and Development Services. The applicant for this request is Mr. John White. The location of the property has an unassigned 911 address, but it's also colloquially known as 511 East Harris Street. The future land use for the property is urban service, and it has a residential 2 zoning district. The subject parcel is .17 acres and is located within the Glisson and Wells subdivision, which was recorded in 1911. The lot meets the area requirement of the zoning district and had a single-family residence on the property in the past. That single-family residence was demolished in 2009. Land Development Code Section 45796 permits a replacement home, but does not preclude the parcel from conformance with other dimensional requirements. Pursuant to LDC Section 45815, an approved variance by the Zoning Board of Adjustment is required to develop a parcel with insufficient road frontage. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow the development of a parcel with insufficient road frontage with a single-family residence. The subject parcel comprises Lot 1 of Block 9 of the Glisson Wells recorded subdivision, and was platted with a 50-foot of frontage along East Harris Street. According to LDC Section 45632, the required road frontage is 80% of the minimum lot width for that zoning district. The minimum width for the R2 zoning district is 75 feet, therefore the minimum road frontage is 60 feet. The parcel was platted as a corner lot. However, Date Street, which runs along the east side of the property, was not opened in accordance with Putnam County right-of-way standards, and the frontage along Date Street cannot be considered for this parcel. The proposed residential structure is consistent with the residential 2 zoning district and does not jeopardize public welfare or interest. Here's an aerial of the parcel. You can see the platted right-of-way for Date Street on the east side that was not opened. On the west side is 2 recorded lots that have been combined. The majority of the parcels in that subdivision are .17 if they have not been combined. Here's a picture showing the zoning. As you can see, it's all residential 2. Here's the urban service land use. Doesn't appear to have any wetlands on the property. And it's all in flood zone X. I've also got a picture of the plat here. In the bottom left corner, you can see that one of the lots is platted with a 50-foot width. On the right side, I've outlined where that parcel is, and again, you can see that there was a right-of-way platted on that east side of the parcel. Here's a site plan that was submitted with the applicant's variance request application. Just to disclose, I did draw the outline of the site plan and had the applicant state where he wanted his house to be and kind of drew that in for him. The variance request is the only provision in the Land Development Code to allow the property owner to develop a parcel with insufficient road frontage. Staff is recommending approval of the request with no following conditions. The applicant is present, and I'm able to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay. Any questions from staff? For staff? Okay, Mr. Perry, we didn't do the ex parte communication because we were more specific, I think, for the first case. Should we go ahead and do it for this case, just to be kosher?
Yes, ma'am, that'll be
Okay.
fine.
ex parte communication?
Oh,
No. No.
Yeah, no.
No.
Okay, if no questions for staff, then we will do a site visit roll call again. I mean,
see,
because
that
we're
was,
roll calling 2 or 3 times.
that's what I wasn't sure of last
That's
time.
right.
Yes.
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 Okay, that covers all the roll calls. Okay, the applicant is John White Jr. I didn't see anybody sworn in to speak. Does he, are you going to bypass us and let us decide what your fate will be? Okay.
Anybody got a coin?
All right, since Mr. White is not coming forward to speak in his behalf, I will ask if there's anybody in the audience wishing to come forward and speak in favor of this application. Nobody's coming forward. Anybody wish to come forward and speak in opposition? Okay, no one's coming forward, so I guess we will close this to the public and open it up for board motion and discussion.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve variance 22-008 as it meets the criteria for variances required by section 45-833 of the Putnam County Land Development Code. There were no conditions by staff and authorize the chair to sign the final order.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second to approve variance 22-008. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Okay. 5-0, unanimous, your motion carries. So you still have a 30-day appeal process, so if there's any questions or any concerns, please work closely with staff, and good luck on your endeavor. Okay, the next thing on the agenda will be I think the minutes, or old business or new business. I don't think we have any. Okay, the minutes for July 20th, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to see them?
Move to be approved as read.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the minutes of July 2022. All in favor say aye.
All right.
All opposed, motion carries. So is there nothing else for us to consider today? How about a motion to adjourn? So moved. Okay. All right, thank you, guys.